Today we will be remembering these 10 games to movie flops. Some tried their best to please their core fanbase, while others strayed so far away from the source material they alienated their fans. Number 10. Street Fighter. In 1994, Capcom looked to bring its popular fighting franchise to the big screen. Starring the muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Raul Julia of Addams Family fame. Although it was a commercial success monetary-wise, it was poorly received by critics and fans for its campy tone, unfaithfulness to the source material, and overblown effects. However, Julia's performance as M. Bison was singled out for widespread critical acclaim and garnered him a posthumous nomination for Best Supporting Actor at the Saturn Awards. Many fans spoke out that the main character Guile did not rock his signature hairstyle. Other problems was characters were just not faithful to the source material, often mixing up good characters with bad. The Hadouken was simply a flash of light instead of a fireball. One saving grace that Jean-Claude managed to pull off Guile's signature move, the moon kick. Number 9. Mortal Kombat Annihilation. In 1997, following off the bat of the first successful Mortal Kombat movie, Midway sought to duplicate that success with a follow-up Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which was by comparison night and day a bad sequel. Many of the special effects looked cheap, and most, if not apart from one person from the main cast, did not reprise their roles. It was so bad that Jack's metal arms looked like they were made out of rubber, and you can clearly see that they were coming off his arms during some scenes. The drop in quality disappointed mainstream Mortal Kombat fans that went into this movie from the good faith of the first only to be disappointed. Yes, it had fight scenes, yes, it had a techno soundtrack that was reminiscent of its time, but with a change in director and the absence of any big stars like Christopher Lambert, this adaptation met its own fatality. Number 8. DOA. Based on the sexed-up fighting series, the DOA movie was ambitious in its way, trying to craft a movie out of a mostly plot-less game that prioritizes titillation over all else. That's a challenge in itself. Director Corey Yuen and the trio of scribes behind the script gave it their best shot, surrounding its ensemble of female martial artists with assassins, espionage, hidden vaults, and a futuristic pair of sunglasses that turns anyone who wears them into an expert fighter. Sadly, these disparate plot elements fail to cohere in a meaningful way, and the choreography simply can't stack up to the martial arts films it's attempting to emulate. Number 7. Double Dragon. This ridiculous adaptation of the beat-em-up game Double Dragon finds two totally radical LA teens each granted half of a Double Dragon medallion, which gives them special abilities as it places them right in the path of a blonde, villainous Robert Patrick, fresh off his career-defining role of T-1000 in Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Sloppy pacing and hammy performances make it nearly unwatchable, but there's an ingenuity to its practical effects and setting, being a dystopian, earthquake-ravaged version of Los Angeles called New Angeles. In an alternate world where John Carpenter directed it, Double Dragon could have emerged as a genre classic. Number 6. Tekken. Tekken is one of the most beloved fighting franchises in gaming history, but director Dwight Little's decision to excise the game's supernatural elements, such as character mutations and non-human fighters, resulted in the film failing to capture the peculiarities of the franchise. There's some impressive fight choreography thanks to Little's inclusion of decorated martial artists and kickboxers, but the storytelling can't match the intensity of the action. The film's biggest critic is Katsuhiro Harada, the director of the game series, who took to X to declare, "That Hollywood movie is terrible. We were not able to supervise that movie. It was a cruel contract." Number 5. Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. Although this movie stayed close to the Resident Evil law, its problems lies in that it was overstuffed with too many elements trying to shoehorn in the events of Resident Evil 1 and 2 into one movie. Along with B-list actors and subpar acting, this really was a letdown to many fans. It was almost as if this was made for the sole purpose of license rights retainer to maintain the rights to the Resident Evil series. To be fair, it has more in common with the video game series than the Milla Jovovich films that preceded it, but failed to capture the essence of Resident Evil. Number 4. Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter, a 2020 adaptation from Resident Evil director Paul W.S. Anderson, is based on the popular RPG fantasy franchise that takes place in an alternate world where humans aren't always at the top of the food chain, and hunters are celebrated for defeating giant monsters. It has all the elements of a quality action epic. Just look at those giant bone blades. But unfortunately, the film's world is as barren as its desert landscapes. It certainly feels like an old-fashioned video game. Plot doesn't really matter. There's not much character development to speak of, but there's a lot of fighting against an endless swarm of enemies. That might be a harsh critique of old-fashioned video games, but it's an accurate one of this movie. Number 3. Far Cry 2008. Far Cry is a wildly popular first-person shooter series with millions of fans. But did you know there's also a Far Cry movie? No? Well, you're not alone. In fact, the movie, which had a reported budget of $30 million, made less than $800,000 globally. Far Cry, which is also directed by Uwe Boll and follows a German ex-Special Forces soldier played by Til Schweiger as he investigates a secret research facility, is not an entertaining movie. Those who surrender to its 95 minutes, however, will get to see a cameo from late chef and TV personality Anthony Bourdain, an old friend of Boll's. Bourdain, who plays a bit role as a scientist in the movie, chronicled his work on the film in an episode of his No Reservations travel show. Watch the episode. Skip the movie. Number 2. Prince of Persia. The fact that Jake Gyllenhaal, and not an actor of Iranian descent, is the star of this 2010 adaptation of The Prince of Persia, a video game series set in the Middle East, is just the first of its many problems. The cacophonous clash of swords and distracting use of CGI make for vacant and visually junky-looking movie that becomes overbearing after a while, crowding out what little story there actually is for audiences to hold on to. Mike Newell's stab at a swords and sandals fantasy was meant to be the start of a franchise, but poor reviews and a middling run at the box office dashed those plans. That's probably for the best, as Gyllenhaal himself has subtly implied that his heart wasn't in it. I think I learned a lot from that movie and that I spend a lot of time trying to be very thoughtful about the roles that I pick and why I'm picking them, he said in 2019. Number 1. Super Mario Bros. No, not the recent version starring Jack Black and produced by Illumination. Many older viewers can cast their mind back to 1993 when Nintendo tried to bring the plumber and his brother to the big screen in a failed attempt. This version was completely live action and starred the late Bob Hoskin as Mario, Dennis Hopper as King Koopa, and John Leguizamo as Luigi. It was praised for some of its special effects, which at the time were pretty impressive. Also, a lot of the animatronics puppets on screen were very well executed. But the version of that we saw on screen was a far cry from the colorful, vibrant colors of the game. Instead, audiences were greeted with a dark, dingy version of the Mushroom Kingdom, which alienated audiences. Not to mention the directors, who at the time had no prior experience in the field of directing big-budget movies, and what you get is a mess of a movie that could have been any other movie, but just slapped with a Mario logo on it. Bob Hoskin was quoted as saying when asked what was his worst role. Hoskins said that Super Mario Bros. Was the worst movie he had ever done. After Super Mario Bros., Nintendo would not license another film based on the Super Mario game series until the 2023 animated film titled The Super Mario Bros. Movie.